So I've got here a line, a square, and a cube. A square, as you know, is two-dimensional. A cube is three-dimensional. You've probably never heard of a line being described as one-dimensional, but it is. It has one dimension. So what are dimensions then? So let's start with the cube. A cube has a width, it has a height, and it has a depth. So those three things, the three things that you can measure on a cube, each of them are a dimension. So the width, the height, and the depth, all three of them are dimensions. That's why it's called a three-dimensional shape, a 3D shape. It has three dimensions that you can measure. A square is a two-dimensional shape because it only has a width and a height, but it doesn't have a depth. So it doesn't have a depth that you can measure, so it only has two dimensions that you can measure. A line is one-dimensional because it only has one thing that you can measure, just the length. It doesn't have a width and it doesn't have a depth. It doesn't have anything other than its length. So a line is one-dimensional. Over here I've drawn a dot, which represents a point. For example, a place on a graph will have a coordinate. The coordinate will tell you where it is. So a point has a position, but it doesn't have a length, a width, a height, a depth, or anything like that. It doesn't have any dimensions. So a point is zero-dimensional, a line is one-dimensional, a square is two-dimensional, and a cube is three-dimensional. 3 dimensions is as far as it goes. When we write down the units for these shapes, the unit for a three-dimensional shape is a volume, so that tells you how big the three-dimensional shape is, how much space there is inside it. And volume is measured in cubic units to the power of 3. So for example, cm to the power of 3. The 3 in this case is a dead giveaway that we're talking about volume and we're talking about 3D shapes. Area, cm to the power of 2, meter squared, centimeter squared, and so on. The 2 tells you that it's 2 dimensions, it's area. So the 2 is a dead giveaway that we're talking about a 2D shape. So cm to the power of 2 for 2D shapes for area, cm to the power of 3 for 3D shapes for volume. Normal units like centimeters, normal units for measuring length, they are written, of course, without a power, and that's because anything to the power of 1 just simplifies to not having the power there. So when something doesn't have a power written, there is actually an invisible power, it's just to the power of 1, which doesn't change it. So that's what dimensions are. One-dimensional, two-dimensional, three-dimensional, and that's it.